Hey, do me a favor if you don't mind. Like this video and subscribe. Share it with somebody you think might need it. Thank you for stopping by my YouTube channel, checking out these videos where I'm sharing the gospel that I grew up on. Don't be too hard on me. I'm just sharing the way that I understood it and understand it, and trying to shed some light on some of the things that I'm seeing now, and understanding that the good news is really, really good news, and God is more better. All right. So we're looking at Ephesians chapter 1. I ended that last video reading verse 4 from the Passion Translation. I'm going to read it to you again. I'll pull it up on my phone, the Mirror Bible. But I want to read it. This one verse is foundational in my understanding, in the way that I'm beginning to see the good news that God was in Christ, reconciling the world. Because we were lost in our minds, in our ignorance, in our unbelief, in our disobedience, in our darkness. We were lost. But God had already done something before time to secure us. And we were born into this world. I'll show it to you here in just a minute, my understanding of it. But let me read verse 4. Ephesians 1, Passion Translation. And in love he chose us before he laid the foundation of the universe. Because of his great love, he ordained us so that we would be seen as holy, Holy, in his eyes, with an unstained innocence. So, before time, God had thoughts of you, and he had thoughts of me. And he knew who you were going to be. Let me just read that. It's coming to mind. Psalm 139, verse 15. I love it. I love it. Verse 14 says something about God making me so mysteriously complex. Everything you do is marvelously breathtaking. It simply amazes me to think about it. How thoroughly you know me, Lord. Oh man, this whole psalm, to blow your mind. To blow your mind. Verse 15. Psalm 139, the Passion Translation. You even formed every bone in my body, and you created me in the secret place. Carefully, skillfully, you shaped me from nothing to something. You saw who you created me to be before I became me. Before I'd ever seen the light of day, the number of days you planned for me were already recorded in your book. Every single moment you are thinking of me. How precious and wonderful to consider that you cherish me constantly in your every thought. So this is just the idea. I think it was David writing, talking about how that God wove him in his mother's womb. And there's that verse in Psalm 51 that I mentioned in a previous video. I didn't really talk about it, but that's coupled with Romans 5:12 and proof text that we're born in sin into this world, separated from God, where David says in Psalm 51 that in sin my mother conceived me. There are those that say that it was in adultery that David was conceived. In other words, she was sleeping with another man, not her husband, that David was conceived. It is kind of significant that David, when Naaman, I believe it was, came to anoint the next king, that came to Jesse. Jesse paraded all of his sons before Naaman. And Naaman said, "Is there not another? He's not here." And then he just had, "Oh, must be David. Must be that bastard child. It's down there taking care of the nasty sheep." Anyway, just a thought. I don't know. But all I'm saying is, what I want you to understand reading that God was involved in your conception, and he formed your very bones. And if he's going to go to the trouble to form your bones, I think he could form your, I'm saying he made you like you are. Some of you are type A personalities, but God made you that way. That's all I'm saying. God made you the way that you are. He formed you intricately woven in your mother's womb in the dark places. And what we're discovering here in Ephesians chapter 1 and verse 4, that in love he chose us before he laid the foundation of the universe. So how did he choose you if you weren't even born? I believe he had thoughts of you. He knew you. He knew you. That's the verse, Jeremiah chapter 1. Before I formed you, he says, let me read that to you. That's worthy of reading. He says, before I formed thee in the belly, I knew thee. And before thou camest forth out of the womb, I sanctified thee. And I ordained thee a prophet unto the nations. So there it is, out of the King James Bible, the New Living, because I like it too. He says, I knew you before I formed you in your mother's womb. David just telling us about how that God was working and making our bones and all of our body and our inward parts. I mean, all you got to do is look at our inward parts, man. Our human bodies were built for life. You cut your finger, it starts healing. You don't even have to tell it. We're geared for life because God made us that way. He says, I knew you before I formed you in your mother's womb. What the heck does that mean? I knew you before I formed you in your mother's womb. Before you were born, I set you apart. See, God, before there was one, wrote your days in a book, before there was one of them. What's he talking? He has a plan for you. And his plan for you is that you might know from whence you came. He knew you before he formed you in your mother's womb. Hey, thanks for stopping by. Like and subscribe if you don't mind. Share it with somebody. Help me get the word out.